At its best, cheese can be a distillation of a landscape where the plant communities are being impacted and shaped by human-livestock interactions in the form of grazing practices. And then the milk that's created is having its microbiology impacted by farming practices, milking procedure and storage, and the equipment in the cheese make room. This cheese has a distinct and unique yeasty flavor that I also smell when I'm in the barn milking, and it's in pretty much all of the cultured dairy products that they make here. So I feel this flavor is particular to this farm. The evening milking is left unrefrigerated in the cheese make room, and then the next morning cream is skimmed off. The milk is heated along with fresh whole milk from the morning milking. And the starter that's being used is yogurt, like packaged yogurt, or sour milk that they make themselves, which is actually more like kefir. Here you can see the fire that is built on one side being moved underneath and to the vat. And now you can screw it down and it raises up the fire to heat the milk, and then you can move it back out of the way when you're done. So that's the yogurt being added, and even though this commercial yogurt is used, I still consider the cheese to be naturally fermented because it has this very unique flavor that also exists when the cheese is made with the sour milk. So this evening milk is fermenting, and then the curd is formed. It's cut with a wooden saber and then cut with a harp into very small curds. Very little time elapses between culturing, cutting, and hooping, which is typical for alpine cheeses, maintaining the calcium in the curd. So now we are stirring and cooking up to 113 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when the cheese is hooped, this cheesecloth is slid underneath the entire curd mass, and this is late in the season, so there's not as much milk as there would be earlier in the season. And then this curd mass is going to be lifted out and placed onto a wooden draining table where individual cheeses will be cookie cuttered out of the curd mass. And a lot of this equipment is the same stuff that I saw in a museum about cheese making in this region, which has a very long history. And up until like the 80s, it was still done pretty old school. This whole technique of making this thermophilic cheese in a copper vat is, I guess, a Swiss technique that was introduced. And before that, they were making this really stinky cheese called Bohinj that is aged in a jar, and it smells like rotting fruit and some like wash rind characteristics. But this cheese here is very mild. It's sold young, but it has this really unique yeasty flavor like I was describing, along with some umami meatiness. And you can see growing on top of the whey, they like save whey and drink it once it gets really sour, and you can see rafts of orange stuff floating on top. So I feel like there's members of the smear community growing in there, and if you washed it with salt water, you'd probably get a nice washed rind cheese. So it's shaped into a small truffle, and there's a good amount of eyes opening on the inside, and it's eaten young, 10 to 20 days, and it has a lot of flavor by that point.